Welcome back to the PPC Girls podcast today. Sorry, I just completely noticed that my name is wrong on there. It's like trainer, like a TR.
T-Rainer?
And I'm too lazy to go fix that, so that's going to stay.
That's fine. It could be B-roll. You can cut it out, put it at the back.
100%. So today is a special episode because we just found out that we made the PPC influencer list. Ameet, should we share our numbers?
Sure, why not? Why don't you start since you're higher?
So I am number 21.
I'm 29.
29, yeah. It's like our ages, right? You're more mature and I'm more immature.
I was trying to figure out where you were going with that one for a second.
I was thinking, I'm like the one who just started drinking. I just started into this business ownership thing, whereas you've been doing it a while.
Yeah, I'm very old in those years, for sure. For sure.
So good. All right, so I figured we'd do a special episode, talk about like what PPC influence means to us, because I think that within like other communities, they think of influence a certain way, and then we're professional influencers. As our dear friend Julie Buccini, who's also on the list, says, we are like minor internet celebrities.
You know what's really funny that you say that? Because I used to describe myself as that like way back in like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Somebody was like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, in a very small set of the internet, I'm incredibly famous. Like, what? And I'm like, it's a very, very tiny circle, but in that circle.
Pretty much. So yeah, I guess we could just talk about what influence means to us, what we've seen as influencers, and what we sort of hold as sort of our compass, because we do have a platform that we speak. I think we can just cover everything and anything. So I guess I will start out with one thing that I saw very early on as an influencer that I think shocks people. And that is that being an influencer does not mean it's raining clients on me. What has your experience been?
That's actually very, very true. Yeah, I think everybody has this notion of just looking at people online and be like, oh yeah, you guys must be really, really busy. Not to say that like at Hopskip Media we kind of are, but it took a long time to get us here,
Yes.
right? So that's kind of also one of those pieces where I think a lot of people just assume that things are better because you have it out like an outward facing personality.
Yes.
Online identity, whatever the heck we want to call it. I'm not really comfortable with the influencer word just because like my mind also goes into like the social influencers, like the little kids in high school going, I'm going to be an influencer. And I'm like, but
Yeah.
for what? Like,
Right.
for what? So that's where my mind kind of gets stuck. I just kind of, I've adopted content creator because I'm like, okay, that's a very literal way to say what I do, where influencer just still doesn't quite feel right to me. But that's just me.
Yeah, I would agree there. And I would say, outside of other paid search people, our clients don't necessarily see us as that. I've never had a client come to me through my sort of quote unquote influence and been like, I have heard your name, you're a big deal, I want to work with you. It's always a piece of content that I put out there that resonates with them. And then I don't even think that the influence closes the deal. I don't think when I say, well, I'm the top 21, like I would never say that. I'm the top 21 worldwide, I just would not come across that. I do think that maybe if they were Googling my name, they would see that, but I don't necessarily feel like in any way, shape, or form that would convince them. Would you agree?
I think there's probably a little bit of authority there. Like, am I going to be adding this to our proposal template?
Right. Yes.
Every logo that I have ever collected is in that proposal template. I will
Same.
not let them go. Is it going to maybe somehow find its way on our website? Probably.
Yeah, I agree.
All the places it's going to make it there. But like, do I think it's the determining factor? Do I think it's part of the process to a certain degree?
Yes.
Yes. Because I do think that the online authority helps with lead generation to a certain degree, at the very least, or at least for me it has, where now instead of having clients come in and be like, oh yeah, XYZ person referred me, it's, oh, I heard your name from like 2, 3, 4 people.
Right.
And now that's kind of gotten really cool because now people are just like, oh, I've heard of this girl, I don't know her. And now that's starting to have like a little bit of a snowball effect, which has been really, really cool to see. So there is merit to it, but like, I mean, how long have I been creating content for? 2015, I think. So 10 years now, and it's finally starting to do what I kind of wanted it to do. So like, yeah, if anyone's sitting there going, I'm going to become an influencer or content creator or whatever the heck you want to call yourselves, like it's very much a long-term process type of game. Admittedly, you could probably make it work a little bit faster than I did, but yeah, it takes a little while regardless.
I would agree with that. So again, the second thing that I've seen, and I brought this up sort of when we came up with this idea to talk about this today. So I have seen almost like I'm going to call it a negativity towards influencers. I encountered it one time on someone's landing page. They literally, if you Googled PPC services, you would click on someone's landing page and it said like, I'm not one of those paid search influencers who, you don't have like a direct, like, you're not going to be able to find me because I'm not one of them. But it was very, like anti-influencer. And I would say the anti-influencer mentality, I think, is one that's interesting. And I have posted content online that gets very, very high engagement that says, are you tired of paid search influencers saying, and then I say it, and people love that because there is a fatigue around it. Have you experienced that? Like, what's your thought?
Not so much, honestly. I'm actually kind of shocked by that comment on that landing page, if I'm entirely honest with you. Because if it's just like, well, you're not going to find me, then how am I going to find you?
I know, right? And when you're buying ads, right? So
Like
actually,
it just doesn't, it feels a little counterproductive in my mind to sit there and be like, you'll never be able to find me. But we're search people. We're supposed to be found. That's our whole purpose. So if we can't be found, then how are we going to actually be able to tell our clients that we can do the same? Right? Admittedly, yeah, we're paid and we're not particularly organic or like on that side of things. But the reason I got jobs back in the day was because they could find me. They put a meet into Google and they saw exactly my links for the first 5, 6, 7. And then it started being like other meets in the world. And now if you go and check my name, I'm pretty sure I'm dominating the entire thing. I want to be found. I want people to know who exactly I am. Otherwise, I don't really have much of a business now, do I? So yeah, I don't know. I've never had that kind of encounter where someone's made comments about the influencer side of things in the PPC community, but I'm kind of shocked by it, to be entirely honest with you.
yeah, I mean, I feel like it's one of those where, people have seen, I was Googling, by the way, to see if I could find it, but I can't, which maybe means the person paid for ads and then the ads weren't able to be supported. I don't know. So they stopped ads.
Yeah.
Maybe didn't get enough conversions from that.
I mean, it's a high CPA, especially for like agencies and stuff like that. Like
100%.
the CPA is far too high. You really need to be spending money for like 2 months with getting no return before you actually yeah, literally I hear it from every agency owner that runs ads. 2 months, you're basically just eating the cost. And the third month is when you start doing it. So maybe that might have been it where they thought they could see a return right off the bat and it just didn't do that.
100%. I'm smart enough to know not to buy my own ads.
Yeah.
That's great. So I guess the part that doesn't surprise me is feeling like you've had a negative experience with an influencer. And it would probably come from either a person or a company that used the influencer as maybe that primary reason for going with them. Like, I'm going to go to XYZ person because they're number 1, 2, or 3, right?
Yeah, I think that's a little terrifying. I feel like I would be terrified if someone came through and was like, I saw you were number 29. We want to work with you for that reason.
Right. Or you made
I don't
top
know if I
50.
feel
Like,
good about that.
yeah, I totally agree. Because you and I know that if somebody came and had me run a campaign or you ran a campaign, we'd have similar approaches. There would be some variances, but it's not about the best PPCer. It's about the person that you're going to be able to work with the best. And once you get
And
to
also
our level,
experience.
right?
Right?
Yeah,
Like if we look at people even on the list, like if I was sitting there and somebody came in and was like, I want to do PMAX and lead gen, I'd be like, okay, go to Monocom then.
exactly. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes sense to me. Oh, I want to do paid social, go to Acvia.
It's totally.
Who like like all of those people, like it's just yeah, it doesn't make I don't think using the list as a reason to hire someone makes sense. Using the list to find the right match for you, sure, I could get behind that.
So I guess the next thing I want to get at, because I think it's near and dear to my heart, sort of the responsibility of being an influencer, because that's another thing that I take really seriously. You and I wouldn't be influencers if we hadn't said things that are incorrect in the past. So how do you handle that? And how do you handle the fear? Because I think I try to explain to people who want to know how I got to where I got, that I just am not afraid to be wrong. I can say something and I can walk that back later. I can say, well, this is what I used to believe, but this is what I believe today.
Yeah, it's kind of more of the same. I think the mark of an actual expert is someone who doesn't know all the answers. They just know where to look. And I think that's kind of my biggest thing is even when I'm like talking about topics, I might not be the expert, but I can totally direct you in that direction, right? Like last year's PSA webinar, I very distinctly remember you asking me questions and I was like, well, I know Mike Ryan has the studies on it. I know this person did this. I might not have the answer, but I kind of have an idea of who does. And I think that's why I'm okay with being put on these lists, because I've done that little like research. I've read everything as much as I possibly can. I've tried to figure it out. I know that I don't know everything, nor am I going to sit here and claim that I do. But the things that I do know, I firmly do believe that I know them. So that's kind of like the thing where I just go back and forth, where it's just like, okay, I'm willing to say that I'm wrong, or I'm willing to say that I don't know. But you also have to have that, the kindness in you to sit there and be like, okay, that's good enough, right? Because I don't think, I mean, we can even liken this to like influencers and like what everybody else has seen them to be. Like, I'm not going to go to all of them and be like, I have brown skin, you have white skin, tell me how to treat this. Like, that doesn't make any logical sense. Obviously, that person doesn't know. Their expertise is in their own skin type, right? Same thing here. I have my expertise in my own thing. And when I don't, I refer back out to my colleagues who do know more than I do.
Yeah, no, very, very similar. And I think that that's something, you know, I've had to learn along the way. I get a lot of requests still to this day. In fact, my lead form, because it's so confusing to people, my lead form still makes it seem like I manage accounts, because people cannot get used to, oh no, she'll teach me how to manage it. And that may not be for people. They might just want to delegate out that management, in which case, you know, I have a network of people who would do that. Now, luckily, most of the time I'm about 100% close rate. Usually they don't have a budget when they get to me and they need management, and I say, well, this is how much it would cost, but you can do this, or you can try to do this, and if you feel like it really is that hard, which it's not, especially at your budget level, then, you know, you can hire that out and you'll know more, right?
Very much so. Yeah,
Sorry
it kind of
to
just boils down to where they are in their
Yeah.
journey, really, at this point. Some of them might need a trainer, some of them might not. Again, yeah, looking at the list and actually figuring out who's a good consultant and who's someone who's a great account manager is a great way to just kind of narrow down that search for yourself. But yeah, I wouldn't look at the list in itself and just hire somebody off of that. That would, yeah, be a little silly, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm trying to think. So I would say the other thing, and this is for people who want to be influencers, like my best piece of advice, and I'll be curious what yours is to just keep putting yourself out there. I think one of the biggest things is people avoid saying things that have already been said. And my answer to that is you do have a unique voice and a unique experience. So when it comes from you and your authentic voice, it can be the same thing, like the lens that you have. And then I would also say that, you know, if you kind of think about it, like you have the ability to reach a certain volume of people, right? Because of your personal network, which looks unique to your network. Like mine, my core of my network started in Columbus, Ohio, where I worked at Nationwide, and then it kind of went out from there. So like who reaches my content is going to be different than who reaches yours. So I can say the same thing with my lens and it can reach different people, even though it may be in theory the same thing, which is totally different from just blatantly copying people, which that could be a complete episode on its own.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. Like for me, I feel like I'm not saying anything abundantly new. I'm just finding a different way to say it in a way that makes sense in my brain, and hopefully that might make sense in someone else's brain. But like for me, obviously this was never the goal. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of just started posting. All my friends were at that time social media managers or in comms, and they were all posting on social like all the time about what they did. And I was like, oh, maybe I should do the same. And really at that point, I was like the sole PPC person in that city, or at least it felt like it, I should say. So then I was like, okay, maybe like I can find someone, or maybe I can just like close the gap for the knowledge on Google Ads, maybe something, right? Like just made me something that made me feel like a little less alone. And then a lot of my friends used to be like, go on LinkedIn. And for the longest time I didn't, because I was like petrified of like, why bother? I'm already on a platform. Who cares? And then naturally when I got onto LinkedIn, I was like, oh, I've been missing out this entire time. Like the amount of the depth of the content was significantly better. And then I sit there and I think about how much of a better PPC I would have been had I just gone down the LinkedIn route. And that's always just kind of been something that haunts me a little bit. But I mean, better late than never at this point. So for me, it was just more or less of just like, I just kind of felt alone, and I just wanted to like sit there and tell people what I knew just to reinforce it in my head more so than anything else. But then also there weren't a lot of people who looked like me, right? Like at that time when I started, Berna Vergi was like the only one.
Yeah, you're right.
And then I got to see her even take like the top, I think at that time it was the top 25 lists. It wasn't even 50. Yeah, I saw her take like number one once or twice, and she was number two once or twice. Like she ranked very highly, and I remember just sitting there looking at this list and not really quite understanding it at that time. And remember going, "Oh, cool." And never at a point did I sit there and go, "Oh yeah, maybe I could make this list." It was just really cool just to see another person who looked somewhat like me in that space. And then I was like, "Okay, maybe I could." maybe I should. And that's when my content kind of just got like a little bit more, like in terms of like the volume of it. I started doing more, and then everything else kind of just fell into place. For me, it was just more or less of like keeping my head down, getting the work done, and then somebody somewhere noticed. They suggested me for a conference, which then got me in a room full of people who sat there and was like, you should try to do Brighton. It's coming to the US this year, do it. And then that ended up becoming that thing. And that's how I landed on the top 100 list the first time around, was because I did the conferences. I didn't realize that they were even part of it
Yeah.
at that time. It was just suggestions of people who've seen me keep my head down, keep doing the work. And then they were like, you know what, you'd be a good fit for this. You know, you'd be a good fit here. You'd be a good fit here. And then naturally everything just kind of opened itself up because I just didn't have that motive in my head that entire time.
Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, I think if you're looking into getting into the space, it's just create the content, but do it without wanting something in return. Because that's kind of how I did it. And it worked out really, really well for me.
Yeah. And I mean, the concept that I think I would say Jill branded this saying is treating your online presence and your fellow PPCers like coworkers, right? So
yeah,
a lot of how we got to how we were is we met online. I mean, these are all my online friends, and I hate to even say the sinful name, but it was Twitter is where we met. You know, the PPC chat hashtag, right? Like that is where we all met. In fact, I would know people by their usernames, you know, versus their, you know, oh, that's PPC Kirk or PPC Greg, or you know the whole Greg thing, right? We didn't know who Greg was for forever.
I love that award. It's the best.
You know, well, we didn't know who he was. Do you remember that? We didn't know his. Okay, yeah. I mean, just it's a fun community. So yeah, just treating like I got to the point where it was my coworkers were gonna laugh about my paid search jokes. Like, and what do you do while Google's down? Right? Go to Twitter and vent about it. So that's a lot.
The good old days. The good old days.
So was there a moment in time when you were like, wow, I am hanging out with the sort of, I'm going to call it the in crowd of PPC?
San Diego, November 2024.
Okay, so your very first, which is where I met you.
Yeah, the second, my first Hero Conf, but second for Brighton in a sense. Because this was the year that they separated Brighton with Hero Conf, but I was at Brighton the year before.
Okay. So I'm trying to think when I had that moment. I would say when I got on Marketing O'Clock's list, I was shocked. That
that one was really weird for me too, because I didn't realize I was even on the radar.
Me either. Yeah, and I found that, and then they sent me so many like wonderful like t-shirts and just stuff like that. And then I would say putting the names and faces together, 2024 Brighton, getting asked to write for search engine land. I remember I got a migraine of happiness. Like I was like, oh my god, I was like sweating. It was such a dream come true.
The day that I got my email from Danny Goodwin, I was
like, yeah.
What? And then when I met him at HeroConf, I went to go say hi, and he looked at me and he's like, you did a session for SMX Next. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you did a really good job. And I was like, wait, you were paying attention?
Such a big deal, right? What? Yes, such a big deal. You know, I would say, speaking the second time, getting to moderate, you know, there have been a lot of little things along the way. And each time I hit a milestone, I think, is this the top of my career? You never know when you're at the top of the mountain type thing. But I think there's so much further to go at this point. I guess that brings us to kind of another thing. Both you and I are going somewhere.
Yes, we are. I didn't realize we were going to tell everybody, though.
I didn't either. Should we say it, or should we, I think we should wait.
I feel like we should wait on that one.
I mean, things happen, right? Like, I think that's the things happen, and even you and I, we pinch ourselves.
Yeah, it's constantly one of those moments where I was like, I didn't really realize that this was going to happen.
Same.
Like, if I look around, nobody else in my...
Same.
Actually, I shouldn't say no one else in my province, because I do have Amalia Fowler and Julia Vise in my province as well, but but they're so far away that I could just say in my little radius, no one else is doing it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just interesting and really weird and cool all at the same time to sit there and be like, I kind of knew what I wanted and I just kept my head down and it kept going how it worked itself out.
Yeah. And we're nice people. We're just I lead with just being a nice human every step of the way. Even when, every now and then people get on me for my content.
I feel like I've been relatively unscathed on that one. There was just one time where somebody was kind of pushing me a little bit and I was like, okay, I see your point, but it's not 100% correct. And then that was kind of the end of it, honestly. Nobody It wasn't too bad. And if there's anybody who kind of causes me any kind of grief, I've gotten in the habit of just blocking them now.
So I
Which is
felt
kind
like
of
I had a
frustrating.
little pushy push yesterday. So my content have been leaning more into being anti-agency. And you and I know that I am not blanket statement anti-agency, but I am anti-loading people up for very low pay with 50 to 100 accounts. I do not feel like that's okay. I feel like it takes for granted people in every way, shape, or form, mostly the client, but the worker too, who would agree to that. There's just a lot I could go on and on about. And I must have hit a nerve.
Sometimes that happens, you know?
It
Sometimes that happens.
happens. It happens. It happens. But the comment was your online persona seems anti-agency.
Okay.
But I like the calling it my online persona. Like there was some little dig in that.
Okay. I could kind of see it, I guess. I don't know. For me, I don't know if I would care that much. I'd be like, yeah, so what's it to you? How does it change your life?
So what I said is, if you would like to offer other solutions for agencies that are wonderful and don't do this, how do you not do this? Tell me about it, right? Like that's the truth. If you're not doing that, then how are you not doing that? And talk about that and preach about that and be proud of that. But you're not one of those. And then join the dark side where you publicly announce that that is not okay.
Yeah, that's totally fair. That's a fair ask. I think that's a fair rebuttal. If you don't like it, then why are you not doing anything different?
Or sharing what you're doing differently, right?
But some people just want to be online for the sake of just responding and calling it a day. That's just some of them. That's where I feel like I lack really, really hard is my engagement side of things. I do not respond or message or do that stuff on LinkedIn as much as I feel like I should. Because I do think on like an authority building side of things, it's like you really do need to show up in other people's comments to sit there and be like,
Absolutely.
okay, yeah, I've tried this or I haven't or
Yeah.
I don't think you're necessarily 100% correct here and do our version of pushing back, but like in the name of growth really at this point.
And I probably
And I feel
should
like
have
that's where I lack quite a bit.
added that to sort of my, treat the coworkers like they're yours. I should have added that as the comments. The comments are just gold because the fact of the matter is the biggest influencers that are influencers need people to read their articles. And so if you read their article and you have something to say about it, even like Amy have done, every time I read her articles, I love her tone. She's funny. That's hard to do. And I love like her images. Or were you at the presentation she did at Brighton?
No, I think I was speaking at the same time. I can't quite remember. There's a reason why. There's a very good reason why I had to miss hers, and I was very upset.
She has her imagery like in her presentations and in her search engine land articles like locked down and very branded. She does like a retro theme.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
very, very like, and they're all cohesive, and I just love what she does. And then to add that humor on top of it, I think she has a really, really good approach. And so sometimes it's taking the like couple minutes to be like, I love this article. The way you rate is hilarious. And by the way, I love your retro images, because it's the things that you notice about people and the acknowledgement that helps grow that relationship. And it's not even like you're trying to get, you're just like, dude, I love this. Like, this is great. That is being human and acknowledging that, and other people in the comments I think is always helpful. And that kind of full circle goes into what you just said earlier, which is write basic stuff. That's okay. You and I say the same things over and over again. Amy, to me, is talking about stuff that maybe isn't necessarily new to me, but it's the approach and the way that she speaks about it that is very,
She
very
thinks
helpful.
about things very differently.
Very differently.
Very
But very great and very good lens that she has. And then if you dig deeper, you find out like she's had this experience or that or this, it opens up that conversation through the way she presents, which is the entire goal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. No, she's a great content creator. Honestly, somebody that I'm constantly in awe of, because
Same.
she's just the way that she's able to explain things
Same.
is really interesting. But it's like the smallest things, but they just seem so advanced. Like just her talk on pinning headlines was just like,
Right. It's a simple concept.
but you're pinning headlines, right? You don't think you're gonna sit there and be like, oh, my mind's blown, and then you walk out and you're just like, oh, my mind was blown. Like, how are you? Yeah, how are you able to do that? I think she landed at number 4 on the list, and like I couldn't think of anybody who deserved that spot more than her, honestly.
Yeah, and the other person who does differently, a very like simple concept, Jill. I mean, how do we not mention our friend Jill?
That's hard not to,
And
honestly.
then
and she's number 9, top 10. I kind of remembered all the women in the top 10.
It's right beside Nava, who, Nava builds people up. I mean, so it's like I could go through that list and be like, this is what that person is known for, like this. It's amazing. It really is.
Which is why, again, like I feel like I'm a broken record, but using the list as like a place to find the good fit. If you are an agency looking, or not an agency, sorry, a business or a brand looking for an agency or a freelancer or whatever, like this is a really great way to do
Be
that.
like, what are they known
It's just,
for?
what are they known for? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. All right. Well, that was a great episode. Congrats for making the list to both of us.
Congrats to you too.
High five, virtual high five. And